In this video, we're going to take a look at using the smart materials we've been working on and applying those to different texture sets. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just open up my shelf. And here I'm just going to tear this off, and I'm just going to just kind of scale it down, and we'll just place it over here in the UI so we can see what we're working with. And I'm going to come over here to my smart materials, and let's find our painted metal. So here we have our painted metal, and I'm going to now apply this smart material to some of these other texture sets. So what I can do is simply just left click, and I can drag and drop this here into the viewport. And you can see that the mesh parts are highlighting. So for example, if I want to place this painted metal on these arms, I can just drag and drop this painted metal to the specific asset here in the 3D view. So I'll let go of my mouse, and this is now going to texture the asset here with the smart material. The layer stack is automatically set to the texture set where I've dropped the material. Here again, you can see that if I expand this layer group, all of the layers are intact. I can go in and start to tweak and change any of these parameters or grunge maps. So again, we call these smart materials because they automatically apply the baked maps from a texture set when they are applied. So for example, here we have this MG mask editor. So I'm going to select the MG mask editor. Here, let me just grab my properties again. So I'm going to open up my properties, and I'm just going to dock that here to this bottom section of the UI. And so with the mask editor selected again, I'm just going to scroll down here towards the bottom where I have my image inputs, and you can see that it's automatically placed the arm handle bake maps when the material was just drag and dropped here onto this texture set. So now I'm going to do the same thing, except this time I'm going to drag and drop my rust. So here I have my rust. Let's drag and drop this here again onto the arm mesh part, and I'll just let go here, and now the rust has been applied. And just like that, we've already textured this asset without doing anything but just reusing the content we've already created. So this really illustrates the strong case for working procedurally to get most of the work done. So at this stage, we haven't done any hand painting or anything like that yet, and that works great because of all of the procedural generators and grunge maps we're using can automatically be applied when the material is added to the texture set because the materials are smart. Now, of course, if we had painted in all of our edgeware here on the mesh and then tried to apply that to another area, which is going to have different UV coordinates, then none of the strokes would match up where we want them to be. So you can see that, again, working this way helps us to work a lot faster and more efficiently in our Substance Painter projects. So although this works pretty well, just being able to drag and drop these smart materials, we do have an issue where if we make a change in one texture set, it will no longer update in the other. So for example, I'm going to select my base texture set here, and again, I'm just going to use the keyboard shortcut, Control Alt and right click onto this mesh part to select the texture set. Now let's say we go here into this painted metal, and I go back to this base color. Here I'm going to select my material tab, and then I'm just going to change the color. So say I start to change the color, and we use something that's a bit more lighter in value. Now you can see that, well, the other texture set is no longer updating, so I would have to go into each texture set and update it. We can solve that problem by using Substance Painter's layer instancing features. So here, let me hit just Control Z to undo that. And here I'm going to select the arm texture set, again, just using my keyboard shortcut, Control Alt, right click here on the mesh part. And now we select the texture set. I'm going to come over here to this painted metal, and I'm just going to delete it. So right now, all we have is our rust. Let's navigate back to our base texture set, Control Alt, right click. And here we have our painted metal group. Now, I would like to instance this entire group to this arm texture set. So whenever I make changes, it will automatically update across all texture sets where this group is referenced. So to do that, I'm going to select the group, just right click, and I'm going to choose the option Instantiate Across Texture Sets. So I'll left click to choose this option. Now here you can see that this gives me a dialog box which allows me to choose which texture set that I want to instance this. In this case, I'm going to choose arm handle and the top. So now that I have this set, I'll click OK. And we've now instanced this painted metal. You can see here that we have an instanced icon. And if I click this button, and it shows me that this painted metal is instanced into the top one texture set as well as the arm handle. And I can left click on this hierarchy to automatically select that texture set. Now you can see that when we instance this, it placed the painted metal instance above our rust. So we don't want that. So here I'm going to select the rust and just simply drag and drop it above the painted metal instance. And now we have the correct order here for our material blending. Let's select the top texture set, so Control Alt right click. And now we have, again, you can see our painted metal instance. Let's grab our rust, left click, drag and drop that here as well into the texture set. So now you can see we have the asset fully textured. However, if I go back here to that base, that's where we have the core painted metal material. So again, I'm just using the shortcut, Control Alt right click. And now I'm going to come back into this group and start to change some of the color. So let's go here to this base, and I'll navigate here to my material group, and let's just simply change the color. Here, I'll just make it something like a lighter color. And now you can see that all the instance layers are updating. So this gives me a way to work, again, with this kind of procedural workflow to where I can instantiate my texture across all of these sets, and then it gives me a central location to change values and have them update everywhere. So here in this case, I'm just going to go back to this blue, but I think I might just decrease the value and the saturation here a bit. So let's do something like this. And as I said before, this gets us to 80% of the work done, and we've done this all procedurally. Now we can spend that 10 or 20% hand painting details and cleaning up any issues that we find. So it looks like I missed one of my texture sets, so let's just go back here to our painted metal, right click, and then choose Instantiate across texture sets. And then here I'm going to choose the glass enclosure and then click OK. All right, so now here we're going to navigate to this glass enclosure texture set, just using the keyboard shortcut, and let's grab our rust and drag and drop that here to the top of the texture set. Okay, so that'll take care of all of the texture sets that we want to use this painted metal as well as our rust. In the next video, we're going to take a look at using brushes, paint effects, and stencils to hand paint details.